So a few years back, I was at a Bible camp, and one of the activities at this Bible camp was you climb this big mountain, and it was called Candy Rock. And when you were going down the mountain, everyone got the option to go down this thing called the chimney. And when you're going down the chimney, there's this drop. It's 5 or 6 foot drop, and I did not know this. Well, when I was going down the chimney, I learned I'm claustrophobic, and I have a big fear of heights. So when I get to the drop, I freeze. I start crying. I couldn't control myself. I had a panic attack. And there are two 18 to 19-year-old guys, counselors, who are trying to get me to calm down and get down. And it took my dad coming all the way around and talking to me to get me down. Because I didn't see a 5 to 6 foot drop. I saw a drop that might as well have been a mile deep. And I had to put my faith in my dad. I had to put all my faith in my dad to get down. And in Hebrews chapter 11, when we look at that, we see a bunch of people who put their faith in God. They didn't know what was going to happen to them, but they put their faith in God. And in verses 32 through 34, it reads, "And what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Japheth, of David and Samuel, and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, were made strong out of weakness, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to fight." So in that short passage, we see a list of people who put their faith in God and did great things. Well, I want to look at the example of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and as the Hebrew writer puts it in verse 34, quenched the power of fire. And I think we can see that a lot better in Daniel chapter 6. As we look at these examples, we see them putting faith in God even when they didn't know the outcome. And the first example we see is putting faith in God even when we don't know the outcome means withstanding pressure or persecution. And when we look in Daniel chapter 3, verse 6, we see it says, "And whoever does not fall down and worship shall immediately be cast into the burning fiery furnace." So we see that King Nebuchadnezzar is telling them, worship my statue or you're going to be thrown into this big fiery furnace. And later in verse 19, it says, "Then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with the fury, and the expression of his face was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times more than it was usually heated." So we see that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they denied, worshiping his statue. They said no. And King Nebuchadnezzar got mad. He had they had the furnace heated up hotter than it usually is heated. And the second example we see is putting faith in God even when we don't know the outcome means trusting in God and his power. In verses 16 through 18, it says, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, 'O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up.'" So in this verse, we see that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they said, "We're not going to worship your statue, and we know God can save us. He can easily save us from you. But we don't expect him to. We don't expect that he's going to save us." And a lot of times we tend to do that, right? We tend to think, oh, God won't let anything happen to us. God will protect us. And sometimes our faith is going to be tested, whether it be at home or at school or maybe in our work. We might have a coworker or a schoolmate who tries to get us to do something we're not supposed to that goes against God's word. And they might, even though we say no, keep pushing and pushing and pushing to get us to do what they want. And we have to, as Christians, put our faith in God, just like I had to put my faith in my dad to get down from that drop. And when we do that, we see that it glorifies God. We see in verse 28, it says, Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angels and delivered his servants who trusted in him, and set aside the king's command, and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own. We see that through what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, when they put their faith in God, Nebuchadnezzar saw what God can do and saw their faith and started proclaiming, started worshiping and proclaiming God. God gets the glory when we put our faith in him, even if we don't know what the outcome is. I encourage you to, when you're being tested by someone, to put your faith in God like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did. To put your faith in God even when you don't know what the outcome is. Thank you.